Every man has asked himself this question at some point. Does my size matter? It's the insecurity that might be keeping you up at night. It's the anxiety that creeps in before intimacy. It's that fear that you're not enough, or you're not big enough, or thick enough. But here's what's really happening, is that you're not dealing with a physical problem. You are dealing with a psychological barrier that I call the insecurity gap. Welcome back to The Naked Connection. This is the show that supports driven men to reach sexual mastery and build deep connections. It's Kirsten, and I'm really excited to dive into this topic of does size matter? Today, we are tackling that question that plagues millions of men. We are going to explore why this insecurity exists and what women actually care about. And I'm going to give you a clear, actionable plan to close this gap and to really become unshakably sexually confident, no matter how big your penis is. And if you've ever worried about your size, if performance anxiety is hurting your confidence, or if you want to understand what actually drives female pleasure, this episode is here for you. And before we go any further, please take a moment and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss a single episode. So with that, let's dive in and let's get some. This is what I call the insecurity gap. It is the massive difference between what you think women care about and what women actually care about. So this idea that women just care about the size of your dick versus a woman caring about confidence, about connection, and about skillfulness. The bigger the gap this becomes in your mind, the more your anxiety grows. And the more your anxiety grows, the worse your performance, your confidence, and your skill becomes. You're literally creating the problem that you're afraid of. And this myth about size has been really perpetuated by pop culture, by porn, and by a lack of really honest communication about what is actually happening in the bedroom. Here is how the vicious cycle shows up. When you focus on your size, you're not focused on your partner. And when you're not present with her, you can't read her body, you can't respond to her needs or create the connection that really drives her pleasure. Not only that, but you're missing out on your own pleasure and your own experience. And this insecurity about your body starts to kill your ability to use your body effectively. Your fear of not being big enough or just enough in general is making you not enough, but not for the reasons that you think. The reality is that most women care infinitely more about how you make them feel than how you measure up to some arbitrary standard. And I want to share this, is that many men struggle with concerns about the size of their penis because oftentimes when you're at a young age, you're exposed to pornography that shows men with abnormally large cocks. And when you consider that most men are exposed to pornography when they're children and your penis isn't even fully grown, you're not even fully developed, your balls might have not even dropped yet, the disproportion between the size of your penis and the size of a porn star's penis is massive. So already it's instilling in you this idea that, this isn't big enough. Even when you become an adult and you continue to be exposed to these larger cocks on video, on photo, online, there's this undercurrent of I am not big enough, I'm not enough. And look, I'm not going to lie to you. Yes, of course, there are women who love a big penis. Those size queens in this world, they do exist. So I'm not going to pretend in this conversation like that isn't a reality. And at the same time, that should not stop you from knowing that you can show up and be an incredible lover and be incredible in bed and use different skills and tools to maybe even be better than those men. Because just going to share this, a lot of men with really big penises, this isn't everybody, but they show up in a way knowing what they have and not putting in the effort or the work in other areas. So this really becomes an opportunity to use your learned skills and your learned capacity to outshine any man that might have a bigger penis. All right, you guys, let's talk about something that nobody wants to admit. Poor quality sheets are a total mood killer. Think about it. You just had incredible, steamy, wild sex, and now you're both laying there in a pool of sweat and everything else, just soaking into that scratchy, uncomfortable sheet set. Just not exactly the vibe if you want your girl to actually stay in bed with you or come back for more. So if you want to create a bedroom that she never wants to leave, you need to think about every detail. And that starts with your sheets. Cozy Earth's bamboo sheets are temperature regulated and made from bamboo. They naturally wick away heat and moisture from your body, so you sleep several degrees cooler. No more sticky, uncomfortable nights. And look, Black Friday has come early at Cozy Earth, so stack code Naked Connection on top of their entire site-wide sale for up to 40% off. And with a 100-night sleep trial, you can try these sheets risk-free. But trust me, you won't want to return them. Ever since I got my own sheet set, I haven't been able to sleep in anything else because they are so amazing. So head on over to cozyearth.com and use code NAKEDConnection at checkout. And if you get a post-purchase survey, mention the Naked Connection is where you heard about Cozy Earth. Be sure to wrap the ones that you love in luxury with Cozy Earth. I want to start with providing you a couple of tools to really shift your perspective and to shift this insecurity gap. Let's start with tool number 1, which is the power of foreplay. Most men see foreplay as really the warm-up to the main event. Well, confident men understand that foreplay in many ways is the main event. And if that is depressing to you, hold on. It is not what you think. So here's what research actually shows about female pleasure. The vast majority of women require clitoral stimulation to reach orgasm. So your hands, your mouth, and your tongue are infinitely more powerful tools for her pleasure than ultimately any part of your anatomy. When you become a master of foreplay, size starts to become more irrelevant. So even if you are on the smaller side, if you're mastered foreplay, it becomes more irrelevant. When you can bring her to climax with your hands, with your mouth, with a combination of elements of your body, when you are able to bring her entire body to come online and come alive with non-penetrative touch, you can realize that your insecurity was really based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how female pleasure actually works. So for this first tool, it's kind of like your homework, is to dedicate at least 15 to 20 minutes to non-penetrative touch every time you're intimate. Just to try this out for a while and see how it goes. Focus on exploring her body, on allowing her to explore your body, and to pay attention to what makes her really respond to you. This practice alone has the ability to dissolve a lot of that anxiety about size, because you will likely discover that you have everything that you need to drive her wild. You'll build genuine confidence based on real skill, not imaginary measurements. And when you know that you can bring her incredible pleasure regardless of what happens during penetration, the pressure starts to dissolve. You're no longer performing, you're actually playing. And another thing I want to note here is actually about a woman's anatomy. So naturally, the internal walls of her vaginal canal is about 3 to 4 inches when not aroused. When she does become aroused, a vagina has the capacity to grow up to 200%, so about reaching 6 to 8 inches in entirety. Now, the important piece here is to know that the first third of her vagina has the most sensitive and highest collection of nerve endings. So really being able to stimulate and to connect with the first third of her vaginal walls is going to create the largest amount of sensation in her body. So you don't necessarily need to be able to reach all the way back to those 6 to 8 inches in order to provide a lot of stimulation and a lot of pleasurable sensation. So the second tool we are going to get into is a simple but profound shift in how you communicate about sex and intimacy. And this is the communication shift. Your anxiety about the size of your penis comes from probably not knowing what your partner actually wants. The solution isn't to keep guessing or to worry in silence. The solution is to talk about it. But here's the key. You have to ask the right questions in the right way. So instead of asking, which I doubt that you ever would, am I big enough for you, or do you wish I was bigger? Because these questions are going to put pressure on her to manage your insecurity or potentially to be deceitful, which is neither sexy nor really fair. Like, nobody wants that. You could ask instead, what kind of touch feels best for you? Or is there something you've always wanted to try? Or what makes you feel most connected to me? Because these questions take the focus off of your insecurity and they place it on your connection as a team. They show confidence because you're really prioritizing her pleasure over your own ego. And when you ask open-ended questions about her desires, you get to discover that her answers have probably nothing to do with size and everything to do with presence, with attention, and emotional connection. This communication shift can accomplish a lot of things. It gives you real information about what actually pleases your partner, and it demonstrates the kind of confidence that women find really, really irresistible. So remember, asking about her pleasure isn't admitting inadequacy, it's demonstrating mastery. So master asking clear questions, because amateurs are going to pretend like they already know everything. The final tool here is probably the most important, and it is adopting what I call the intimacy mindset. You really want to stop thinking of sex as a performance and start thinking of it as a shared experience of connection and intimacy. Because when your goal shifts from performing to connecting, you become free from that fear of failure. You're not focused on that outcome that you can't control. You're focused on that moment that you can influence. And this is where true pleasure lives for both of you. When you're present, when you're connected, when you're focused on the experience rather than the result, that's when sex really takes a turn. So before you become intimate, take a moment and just connect with your partner. Focus on her breath, maybe even synchronizing your breath to hers, looking deeply into her eyes and just being present with her. This simple practice shifts the energy from like task, let's go, check this off the list, to, we're connecting. We're having an experience together, you and I. And this intimacy mindset recognizes that great sex isn't about the size of your penis, it's about connection. It's not about having the quote unquote right equipment. It's about creating the right energy. And when you approach intimacy from this perspective, size becomes pretty irrelevant because you understand that the most important sexual organ is actually your brain and your ability to really be present, to connect, to respond. These are the qualities that create unforgettable experiences. So with these 3 tools in mind, I want to share something that might surprise you. In study after study that I was finding, when women are asked about sexual satisfaction, size ranks far below factors like emotional connection, communication, and a partner's confidence and presence. Women want to feel desired, cherished, appreciated, and connected with. They want partners who are present and engaged and focused on mutual pleasure rather than personal insecurity. The men who consistently satisfy their partners are not necessarily the ones with the biggest measurements. They're the ones with the biggest hearts and the strongest presence. Your worth as a lover is not determined by something that you have no control over. It's determined by something you have complete control over, which is your ability to show up, to be present, and to prioritize connection. I do want to add a caveat here. If the size of your penis is something that you are concerned about, there, yes, are things you can do to physically increase the size of your cock. Go ahead and check out the episode that I did with Susan Branton, and it's all about biohacking skills for sexual health and penile wellness. So know that there are things you can do if this is something that is really important to you, where even though you've implemented all of these different tools and you know that deep down you still want to work on shifting the size of your cock, it is possible to do so. And I will also say this, on the flip side, there are men who have really large penises and it actually becomes a detriment to them because intercourse can be painful, or they aren't able to be with a woman because it is too painful for her, or there are limitations of what they can actually do in bed based on the size of their penis. So know that yes, it is always greener on the other side, and there is always opportunity for you to find someone that does love you and does appreciate you and does desire you because of your size or regardless of it. So here is your action plan to really close this insecurity gap. Master foreplay. Become exceptional with your entire body, with your hands, with your mouth. Practice the communication shift. Ask about her desires, not about inadequacy, and adapt the intimacy mindset. This isn't about ignoring your fears. It's about replacing them with a more powerful focus. It's about becoming a man who knows his value comes from his presence and his ability to connect, not from a ruler. If this episode helps shift your perspective on sexual confidence and what actually matters in the bedroom, take a moment, share it with someone who you think would benefit from hearing this. Until next time, remember this: a woman's pleasure isn't in your size, it's in your presence. This is Kirsten. Now get out there and let's get some.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of The Naked Connection. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss another episode. Trust me on this, your sex life and that special someone in your life will thank you for it. And if you really love the show, please take a moment and leave a 5-star review or a written review and let me know what you think. It would mean so much to me and this show. Until next time, happy connecting.